Good Tuesday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty to talk about today. We'll head out to Goodyear, hear from Chris Antonetti about the Guardians. We'll check in with Chris Fedor as the Cavs win an overtime thriller, trying to stay in that sixth spot, potentially even move up in the Eastern Conference. But we begin by talking Browns football. It is the eve of the new league year, and there is plenty going on with the Browns. We will start with Andrew Berry releasing a statement on the releasing of center J.C. Tretter, NFLPA president. For the past 5 years, J.C. has been a mainstay and Iron Man at center for us, came to our organization at a time of instability, was one of the key veterans that helped us turn the tide over the past several years. Leadership both within the locker room, on the field, will be missed. We wish J.C. Tretter well as he continues his career. Let's take a look at one of the reasons that they, in fact, made that move. It has to do with cap savings. So they cut J.C. Tretter. They release him. They save $8.25 million plus some change. They also traded Mack Wilson for Chase Winovich. We'll get into that a little bit later. But, again, a cap savings. So the Browns currently are 20.9, so almost $21 million under the cap, according to Jack Duffin. With that, let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read him on brownzone.com. Scott, J.C. Tretter, clearly a salary move, and the Browns do need the flexibility because they're going to go get an edge rusher or a wide receiver or try to add and build out this roster.
Yeah, for sure. If it all came down to production and availability, J.C. Tretter would still be on the roster. He was really good for his 5 years here. You know, and Drew Berry mentioned the instability before Tretter arrived. Instability was the first word that came to my mind. He really stabilized the offensive line, first of all, and then, you know, helped in the locker room, helped with the franchise turnaround overall. Smart guy, made a bunch of the line calls, you know, would help the younger linemen. It's a good guy to have around, but if you can save $8 million in cap space and you're, you know, going to pay Amari Cooper $20 million, shows up on your books tomorrow, and you might make a trade and you might sign an edge rusher. You need all that money, and there's a reason that they drafted Nick Harris in the 5th round a couple of years ago.
And Nick Harris did play well in the game that he started for Tretter against the Packers, so that is certainly worth noting. All right, now we get to the really big news. Browns involved pretty heavily in the Deshaun Watson talks, a contingent out there talking to Deshaun Watson, out there being Houston. So the Browns contingent meeting with him this afternoon. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, this one, about the said quarterback, Deshaun Watson.
Hi, I'm a Browns fan, originally from Northeast Ohio, but now living in the Houston area. The Browns will be making a big mistake if they go with Deshaun Watson. He's nothing but trouble, and I think they'd be better off with Baker Mayfield. Thank you.
All right, Scott. So we've had a couple of voicemails that reiterate that. And again, no criminal activity, still 22 lawsuits, civil lawsuits against him for various sexual misconduct. When you look at the Browns, they have to be prepared. If they do, in fact, pull the trigger and make that trade, there's going to be a pretty significant backlash against them doing that.
Yeah, there's no doubt, which is why I think their interest, which is obvious now and it's overt, why I think that's so interesting, because not only do you have to make, you know, whatever, rationalize or come to grips with his background as an organization, you have to know you're going to have to give up a bunch in the trade, right? Whatever that is, 3 first-round picks and players, whatever that package winds up being, it's going to be a big package. And you're going to have to pay Deshaun Watson a lot of money. I think it's an average of 36 over the next couple of years. And then on top of that, you're going to have to deal with a segment of your fan base that's not going to like the trade and that may boycott in some way, whatever that is. And you're going to have to deal with tough questions. So, you know, I think that speaks to the talent of Deshaun Watson. I think maybe it speaks to the desperation of the organization because they know they need a quarterback that can compete in the AFC. But it certainly is going out on a limb to even express this much interest, right? Even fly down to Houston and make an offer to the Texans and try to convince Deshaun Watson that he should pick you over, the other reported teams, Saints, Panthers, and Falcons.
All right, so let's check in. This is from FS1's The Herd. Colin Cowherd talking about the Browns' pursuit of Deshaun Watson.
I don't think they're going to get him in Cleveland because I don't think they have as much to give in terms of personnel and picks, perhaps. Remember, Deshaun has a no-trade clause. He can kind of pick where he wants to go, and I think he would take New Orleans or Carolina over Cleveland. But I will say this is you can't be noisy unless you're great. Aaron Rodgers is noisy, but he's great. And Kyler's noisy, but he's great. And Big Ben was noisy forever, but in his prime, he was great. It doesn't matter if you're a quarterback. It doesn't matter if you work at a law firm or you're a landscaper. If you're going to be noisy, you got to be special because most companies, there's options and they'll just move off you. Baker's noisy and they don't think he's worth it. So they are trying to upgrade. I do not think Cleveland's going to get him.
And Scott, I don't know that, I give a little pushback with, the fact that Baker's noisy. I think they clearly think they need an upgrade at the quarterback position. I think that's more than anything, that's what this shows.
I would agree with that. I think it's more about Baker's play. I know that the organization has not always been happy with how Baker's handled things. I don't think that's a secret. So I do think the noisiness, might be way down the list. I think he's been, I think that's probably somewhere when you talk about the Browns and Baker, but it's well below his struggles. And it's well below what I think is the Browns' belief that he cannot be the guy they need. Or the odds are against him turning out to be the guy they need. So therefore, you got to go pursue a quarterback upgrade. I agree with that part of it. I think it's interesting. Do the Browns have more to offer than another team? I think you can have that argument. The Saints are a really good team that needs a really good quarterback. So that seems like a good fit. I don't know the package of picks that they could offer, but I know the Browns roster is pretty good. And if you put a quarterback like Deshaun Watson on it, all of a sudden they feel like a legitimate playoff contender, which I don't know if they feel quite – I know they don't feel the same way if Baker Mayfield's a quarterback.
Yeah, I think we've said pretty consistently a really good passing game is what kind of pushes the Browns into the elite, and quarterback is certainly a part of that. All right, so let's take a look at this is from BetJack's Twitter, the odds, and these are updated. So again, they list the Panthers as the favorite at plus 150. That's close to where he went to college in Clemson, at Clemson. Saints at plus 200, Browns at plus 300. Everybody else is plus 1,000. That to me says the difference between 150 and 300 in terms of betting, it ain't that great. So you throw a tent over the top of those three as the favorites between the Saints, the Panthers, and the Browns.
Yeah, for sure. And, I don't know what Deshaun Watson's thinking is. You hear that he's really interested in the team to give him the best chance to win a Super Bowl. He's also from, the Atlanta area. So does he want to stay in the South? It feels like that, given Carolina and New Orleans and Atlanta are the other three teams with the Browns that we've heard reported. So, it's interesting. But, I think that you're right. When the odds are that close, it certainly means the Browns are in contention. And I think a lot comes down to today, right? Deshaun Watson's supposed to be giving depositions today in the lawsuits, the civil suits, right? Does anything come out of there? The Browns are going to sit down with him, and yes, they're trying to convince him that he's the right spot for them. But I also figure this is probably the first time the Browns have sat down face-to-face with Deshaun Watson, or at least part of the traveling party, whoever. It's the first time they've sat down with Deshaun Watson since all the, allegations. And I think that matters, right? You can do all the research you want, but I think looking into a guy's eyes and seeing what he says, seeing if you believe him. So, I think while I think the Browns are, I'm going to stop short of all in on this just because they're already headed down there. I do think a face-to-face matters, and there's a chance that they have this meeting and say, you know what, we're not comfortable doing this.
Yeah, absolutely, and they better do as much due diligence as is humanly possible for the reasons we talked about earlier. All right, so somebody who seems to have a pulse on these kind of things, Josina Anderson, was asked via Twitter, do the Browns have a realistic chance of landing Watson? Here's the answer, and you look, they have the pieces to make the deal. Restrained hope. When she talked to people this morning, it's understood the immense impact he can have. Ultimately, the decision is his, meaning he has a no-trade clause. So he can say, nope, don't want to go there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it, right? So the Browns going down there, kind of in conjunction with what I just said, it is a sales pitch. They're trying to convince Deshaun Watson that they're a better place to wind up than Carolina, New Orleans, and Atlanta. And I think they have arguments to make, right? You look at Kevin Stefanski, you look at Andrew Berry, you look at Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett, right? And you can say this roster is close. And go back to 2020 to see what this team can do with good quarterback play. So I do agree with Josina there. I talked to somebody today that it was still, they felt it was a possibility, but unlikely that it could happen. Who knows if that changes throughout the day. You feel like with 4 teams involved, maybe it's just natural to think it's unlikely, right? That one, I don't know if the Browns go in having an edge. That doesn't feel like the vibe that anybody's putting out there. But, it's interesting that he has so much say in this. And then the second half of that is, okay, he picks a team, and then that team has to have the deal in place with the Texans, right? It's a 2-pronged attack, but he's not going anywhere he doesn't want to go.
Yep, he can say, nope, don't want to go there. All right, before we move on from the whole Deshaun Watson, the guy that you're left wondering how he deals with this is Baker Mayfield. So Ian Rappaport put this out there with Pat McAfee about how the Browns would deal with with Baker Mayfield in the event they do get Deshaun Watson.
I saw there was a report that Baker would be in the deal for the Browns. I have not confirmed that. It wouldn't make sense to me if he would, because I would think it'd be more you give draft picks and then you say, all right, well, Baker's available. Does a team like the Colts or the Seahawks, do they then make a play for Baker? Like it's hard to include all these guys in the deal. It's actually much easier to do them as separate deals and then just let each other.
And Scott, the thing that I would say is if you include Baker Mayfield in a Deshaun Watson trade, take out one of those first-round picks. He's a first-round pick. He's the number 1 overall pick.
Right. Yeah, I get what you're saying there, and you're probably right to some degree. I don't think you get a first-round pick back for Baker if you trade him anywhere. So, if there's a second-round pick involved, maybe you take that off the table. Or he counts as one of the players, right? The Texans want picks and players. But I think the holdup, and I get what Ian is saying, but to me, the holdup in including Baker in the trade is whether or not Houston wants him. If Houston wants him, then it becomes a more attractive deal to them, unless they think Davis Mills is the answer at quarterback. If they thought Baker could be an upgrade, and he's a Texas kid coming home, and he's a former number 1 pick, and he's on a cheap deal for the next year, and you can kind of have a tryout season, that makes a lot of sense. But if the Texans don't want him, then you don't include him in the package, and you see if you can trade him to the teams that Ian mentioned. And I get that thinking. I also think that once you trade for Deshaun Watson, the leverage you have to trade Baker Mayfield goes down because everybody in the league knows you're going to trade him. He's not staying with Deshaun Watson. So, I think it's a little bit of a catch-22 there.
Yeah, and the last two things on that, Deshaun Watson, while cleared of criminal charges, likely to be suspended some form or fashion for the beginning part of the season whenever he returns. And then the other thing, keep in mind, Nick Caserio is part of the Patriots. We did hear the Patriots did like Baker Mayfield coming out in that draft. So those are just two things to keep in mind as we move on from that. So still plenty more Browns to talk about. We've alluded to it. Browns made a trade with the Patriots earlier today. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about that trade and the guy the Browns acquired, Chase Winovich, in that trade. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram, as well as brownzone.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns defense.
Hey guys, how you doing? Just a quick question. What's going on with the linebackers? It seems like we're going to be really thin at linebacker heading into this free agency. Is there any plans to add? Because I know we still have JOK, but isn't Walker a free agent this year and Mac Wilson gone? And what's going on with Taki? Like, what are we doing about the linebacker position? Do we have anybody in mind, or are we okay at linebacker? Just want to hear your guys' answer and opinion. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Scott, let you take that one as far as the linebackers go.
Yeah, I mean, they have JOK. They're high on Jacob Phillips, who's missed significant time his first 2 years, but came back at the end of last season. And they have Sione Takitaki, and I would expect him to stick as that strong side third linebacker. I think the goal is to have Phillips and JOK play a bunch of snaps. So when you're in nickel, it's those two guys. When you're in dime, it's JOK. JOK's on the field for every snap. So if you have those two guys, you're just kind of filling in pieces. But given Phillips' injury history, and he's still young, I do think it would help to make sense to have a veteran that can play in the middle, an Anthony Walker type. I'm blanking on the guy who was here the year before. It's killing me. It'll come to me. But even Malcolm Smith, right? Malcolm Smith was a veteran guy last year that they brought back and wound up playing significant time early in the year when Walker got hurt. So B.J. Goodson was the guy they had in 2020. Somebody like that doesn't necessarily have to start, but if Phillips isn't ready or gets hurt again, you can plug and play him. And I think that comes down to, a one-year contract, who's still available in a few days or a week, and how much the money is. So if Anthony Walker remains on the market for 4 or 5 days, I wouldn't be shocked to see him come back.
Yeah, again, you're looking for a bargain, for lack of a better term, 1-year bargain deal, and see what happens. All right. So the guy they're getting in that trade for Mac Wilson is Chase Winovich. Similar draft class to Wilson, so the age is a wash. He's an edge guy, so pass rush. And you look at this, and it's a little concerning, but it's also a little misleading. So the win rate on pass rush, really high as rookie year, 22%, 18%. 7% was a small sample size. He was banged up. It didn't play a whole lot. But the first 2 seasons were actually pretty good. This kind of seems to me like a guy, almost like a Tack McKinley. Bring him in, give him a shot. You're going to probably sign or draft somebody who's going to be the guy that you play opposite as a bookend with Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I think he's a situational pass rusher, right? If he played outside linebacker in New England, but they run a lot of the 3-4. I don't see him as a linebacker here. And I'm not saying he could never do it, but he's more of a pass rush guy. And in the Browns 4-3, that means in nickel spots, you put him outside, you put Myles outside, and you have whoever that other end is, right? The end that they're going to go get. You either move him or Myles inside, maybe. He's a depth signing or a depth move and trade, but it makes sense. I think Mac Wilson did run his course here. We know that the Browns need help on the D-line. They need pass rushers. They just don't have bodies, right? Without Clowney committing, with Tack McKinley, a free agent, and he tore that Achilles, they need a guy like that. So I kind of would pencil him in the competition for that third end spot.
So the Browns did sign a defensive tackle, more of an under-the-radar kind of guy yesterday as well. A defensive tackle, Taven Bryan, was signed to a 1-year deal worth up to $5 million. Former number 1 pick, 29th overall, first-round pick. Again, it's a guy that kind of a low-risk guy, former number 1. Can you catch somebody and see him ascend in this system?
Yeah, you take a flyer on a guy that you think might have some upside, right? And I think Winovich is, similar ballpark. He's a third rounder. Brian's a first rounder. Didn't play a ton with the Jaguars, which is a bad sign because we know how bad the Jaguars are. Has some pass rush potential from inside, and we know the Browns like that. I mean, all teams like that from the interior, but that's what the Browns were looking for. I don't think he's going to be, your 3-down run stopper. He's a guy that might be able to rush the passer a little bit, play in some dime situation. But yeah, it's another Lotus move. But I can't stress enough how much they need bodies on that D line, right? Entering yesterday, they had Myles Garrett, no other starters on the D line, and then even their backups. I don't think they had a number 3. I'm not sure they do now, but they don't have a number 3 end. And then you're talking about Jordan Elliott and Tommy Togiai is kind of your 3 and 4 tackles. So they still need to make moves at both spots.
Do you expect free agency to do that, or is it looking more and more like it might be, drafts in that 3rd, 4th round range?
Yeah, it's so hard to tell. Part of it depends on how much you're going to have if they trade for Deshaun Watson, what kind of picks they would have to give up, right? We assume it would be the 13th pick, so then you're not getting one of those elite edge rushers. So then maybe you have to go commit in free agency, find one of those top guys out in free agency. But let's take Watson off the table. I still think it'll be a combination of both spots, kind of like receiver. I think they're going to add free agents, kind of second-tier guys, and then add draft picks at all 3 spots, at those spots. I don't expect a huge money deal in free agency for any of those DN, D tackle, or receiver, but I wouldn't rule out a big-name defensive end if it plays out a certain way.
Scott Petrak and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, turn our attention a little bit back to the offense. Wide receiver Amari Cooper will enter the conversation. Sports4CLE talking Browns on the eve of the new league year. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. As roster building season in the NFL is in full swing, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns offense.
Hey guys, just want to ask your opinion. I got a little bit mixed feelings on the whole Amari Cooper trade. It's like everybody's like, oh yeah, that's a big upgrade, but we had Odell and we had Jarvis, and they couldn't get off in this offense. So I feel like, what's the big change now that you got Amari Cooper? We still have a pass second, offense run first. So does that upgrade us? I don't know. What's your opinion?
And again, we always appreciate all of the voicemail. Scott, I think it's an upgrade. I think Cooper is better than anybody they had, especially as a red zone guy. And I know Odell is extremely talented. Cooper is more of a fit because he's usually less of a freelance route runner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you're just talking talent, you can make the argument Odell's a better player. I think certainly early in Odell's career, he was a better player. But Amari Cooper is the top whatever receiver in the league, 10, 15, whatever the number is. I think he's a true number 1, which the Browns have needed since Odell forced his way out of town last year at midseason. So, yeah, I think it's a solid move. I understand the trade. You only have to give up a 5th as opposed to hoping he gets to free agency, which there's no guarantee, or free agency, hoping the Cowboys would cut him, which there's no guarantee they wouldn't have traded him somewhere else. And then you could get into a bidding war. We saw how much Christian Kirk signed for yesterday with Jacksonville, so maybe Cooper's price tag would have went up. So I think it's a solid move. I do get the caller's point about the offense being, not featuring receivers, and I get that. But from everything you hear about Amari Cooper, he's not the kind of guy that demands the ball. And he's okay if you run the ball and if you throw to somebody else, right? And I think he will benefit from the play action passing game. So, it comes down to so many things, but a lot of it is about the quarterback play. The quarterback play makes the receivers look better.
Yeah, yes. And the receiving play can help out a quarterback as well. Let me ask you this. They need receivers in the receiver room. Who are some guys, second tier, and I have one in mind. I want to see who you think, free agents that are still out there to keep an ear out for.
You know what? I like, and I think it's going to be a second tier guy, like you said. I like the idea of adding another veteran, especially without Jarvis Landry being here anymore. I think there's a leadership void. Not that Cooper won't help fill that, but especially if you think you're going to draft a guy relatively high, I think you complement that with a veteran guy. So T.Y. Hilton and Emmanuel Sanders are two guys that I think still have production in them and would be a good fit with Cooper, whoever you draft, EPJ, and Anthony Schwartz.
Yeah, I like Sanders. He played in the 49ers system with Shanahan a couple years ago. The other one that I think might be a pretty good fit is a little younger, is DJ Chark from the Jaguars. So that's another name.
I think he signed with the Lions.
Oh, he just signed?
I think he signed with the Lions, yeah.
Okay. Well, then never mind. Then the Lions got a good one. All right, let's check in with Harry Douglas from ESPN's KJM. This one about what it will be like if Baker is back with Baker and Kevin Stefanski this year.
You look at Amari Cooper, you look at his mindset versus a strong-minded Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. So I don't think Amari's going to put the pressure on Baker Mayfield like those other two guys have done. But at the same time, I don't think it's just on Baker Mayfield. Now, don't get me wrong. Baker Mayfield has to be better. Since coming into the NFL, I think in 2018, he has the most interceptions by everybody. That's 56. You got to protect the football. That's the number one thing. Coaches get up in the team meeting room. You talk about must for the week. That's the first thing they mention offensively. You got to protect the football. Also, I think Kevin Stefanski needs to do a better job of getting these receivers involved in the offense. And I understand you're a run-first team. I played for run-first teams. But we also had a guy named Roddy White and a guy named Julio Jones who balled out at the wide receiver positions. And a lot of people don't realize that we were a run-first team with a guy named Michael Turner that did a lot of things and put up a lot of numbers and made Pro Bowls from the running back position. So I think the pressure is going to be on Kevin Stefanski as well as Baker Mayfield to try to make this thing work.
And Scott, that's a very valid point. We've kind of talked a little bit about that. They have to find a way to get the passing game to be more of a threat.
They do, and a lot of that is the receiver position. I'm not saying the receivers necessarily last year, although, when Odell was gone and Jarvis was hurt, you're really down to your bottom tier guys, and I don't think that helped the passing game. But I do agree that Stefanski can do better to involve those guys and make them a bigger part of the passing game. Whether it's, even going to three receivers more than the three tight ends, right? Just switching things up. So I'm not taking blame away from Kevin Stefanski, but again, it's about the quarterback delivering the ball, and I think that was the biggest problem. I don't think Kevin Stefanski ignores receivers, but it helps if your quarterback can get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's important, and to your point, quarterback has the ball in his hand to start every play. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing to keep in mind. All right, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield.
If you think about Baker Mayfield at the beginning when he first started, nobody worried about his footwork, and they let him be a gunslinger. As soon as his footwork started being in question and he got taught a different way to play football in the NFL, then he starts throwing the ball all the way around everywhere. Why don't they just set him up, get his four-drop passes back, four-step drops, but let him gunsling like he does regularly? I think that they're taking away the gunslinger attitude and putting him under too much construction for the game and the passes that he throws. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate the call. Scott, I would refer back to something Harry Douglas said. Early in the week, they're telling him, we got to take care of the ball. You can't turn the ball over. Gunslinger Baker turns the ball over way more than head coach Stefanski wants.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not I don't think it's a philosophical fit. And maybe that's an issue, and maybe Baker would have better success if he was in a wide open system. But I'll tell you what, there's not a ton of those in the league, right? There's not a lot of coaches, head coaches or coordinators that say, yeah, we're good with our quarterback, turn it over a bunch. This league is too close. Every coach talks about turnovers, the turnover battle being the difference. And I think the reality is when Baker is gunslinging, he turns it over too much. And, I know we go back to that rookie year and there were so many exciting moments. But I don't know if that's sustainable. I feel like this is the best way for Baker to play is to take care of the ball and take advantage of his opportunities. And he just hasn't been good enough in those opportunities.
Yeah. And again, if the Watson thing doesn't work out, he's likely to get one more shot in this fifth year to show that he can do what is needed. We'll see how that all works out. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we turn our attention to the draft. Continue talking Browns. What should they do in the draft? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read them on the internet on brownzone.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This is about some ideas with the Browns draft and what they should do.
Hi, my name is Zach, lifelong Browns fan. I got a question regarding the draft. What do you think the chances are that the Browns and Andrew Berry go all in this season and try to get 2 first-round picks this year? Get that wide receiver and a defensive tackle or edge rusher. If you could provide your comments, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
As always, we appreciate all of the voicemail. Scott, it would probably require them trading next year's number 1, which if they don't trade it for Deshaun Watson, that's not really his Andrew Berry style. I can't see them necessarily going all in on any one given year.
Yeah, I wouldn't rule it out completely, but I'm with you, David. If the best, or if an edge rusher, let's say an edge rusher you loved was hanging around at 28, could you try to move up? I suppose, or Chris Olave was hanging around at 28, could you try to move up 16 spots to get him? I can envision some scenario like that, but you're right. I mean, they might not have a number 1 pick this year to begin with after the Watson situation plays out. Or if they don't trade for Watson, then I think you have to have in your back of the mind say, well, you need as many picks as possible in 2023 if you're trying to draft a quarterback then, right? It's always thinking about what you're going to do in the future for a quarterback. So I would put that lower on the list of possible scenarios.
All right. Do you think they're locked into receiver at 13, or does the Cooper trade, and you added Cooper, but you lost Landry. Are they locked into receiver? Is it edge? Is it center now? I mean, what does 13 look like?
Yeah, I don't think it's center. But I would think edge. If I had to bet right now, I'd bet edge. I wouldn't rule out receiver. I thought before the Amari Cooper, I thought receiver had the advantage, but I didn't think it was a slam dunk. Now I think after adding Cooper, the odds shift to edge rusher with receiver number 2 and not being able to rule out defensive tackle. I just think that receiver classes have been so deep in the draft the last few years that you can get a good one at 44, or you can get a good one in the 3rd round. So I don't think it's mandatory you take one at 13. And if you don't make a significant move at edge rusher, that feels like an awfully big need at 13.
Yeah.
And there's going to be good guys there.
Yes, it's deep at both wide receiver and edge rusher. So, all right, here's one for you. Say Malik Willis is hanging around in that 10, 11, 12 range. Is that somebody, if he slides to 13, do you think the Browns potentially take Malik Willis, quarterback from Liberty? Clearly, the one thing we've seen, they're not sold on Baker Mayfield long term. That, more than anything, the what's going on right now tells you that.
Yeah, I think that's the point, right? That's the relevant point, Dave, is that they feel like they need to find a long-term answer quarterback. And yeah, so I think that includes the draft, whether it's Malik Willis or whether it's Kenny Pickett. I think a quarterback is in play at 13, assuming they don't have Deshaun Watson. I certainly think that way. And you're right. I think the interest in Watson and how open it's been is a clear signal that the Browns don't trust Baker to be that guy. So then you have to figure out how you're going to replace that, right? And you can find an answer, even if it's this year, right? You can decide, hey, we're just going to give up on Baker this year. We'll trade him to somebody else. You got to find an answer for this year, and maybe that's Marcus Mariota plus Malik Willis, right? Maybe it's Jimmy Garoppolo for a year. Like, there's answers out there that might not be as attractive as Baker, but if you've already decided that Baker's not going to be your guy, then I don't know if there's a huge benefit to keeping him around for the lame duck season.
Fair enough. All right, we're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, and this one about Baker Mayfield.
Hey, Cleveland people, how soon you forget that 2 years before Baker Mayfield came on the scene, you were 1-15 and 0-16. And I can't remember a whole lot of college quarterbacks that were just dying to come to Cleveland, but Baker Mayfield did. And he brought with him a swagger, and he brought with him a notoriety that you people did not have. If you will look on that shirt that goes around, 30 other quarterbacks before him, and they didn't even win more than 7 games. Now, keep in mind one thing, okay? Look what he did to the Titans in the first half of that game in 2020. And the Burrow deal, he's 4-0 against Joe Burrow. But you people need to support him, because I'm telling you right now, you bring in Deshaun Watson, you're going to have all kinds of trouble, and Russell Wilson's gone. But you give Baker Mayfield, Amari Cooper, get him some tackle protection over there and watch him, because he's always said, you don't think I can do it, you just hide and watch.
All right, and Scott, certainly Baker Mayfield has had glimpses of being a really good quarterback. The consistency hasn't been there. The other thing is, it's a draft. You don't really have a choice. Somebody drafts you. They call it a draft for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I was there when Baker gave his speech at the Combine where he said, I'm the right guy to turn it around. And I understand why Browns fans ate that up. And I understand the loyalty, because he did take this team to the playoffs, and it had been 7 or 18 years since they'd been to the playoffs. I get that. But I think the people that still believe Baker's a guy, and I'm not saying there's no chance for Baker to resurrect his career here or elsewhere. I'm just saying that it seems unlikely to me that that's going to happen. It seems unlikely it's going to happen here. And, the arguments about, well, if they get better tackles or better this, better that, the best quarterbacks don't need a perfect situation, right? I mean, the best quarterbacks lift everybody around them, and Baker hasn't done that enough. You're right. It's been too inconsistent. So in the chip on the shoulder thing, I get that that's Baker's personality, but where was the chip last year, right? I mean, they were struggling last year. How come that didn't all of a sudden lead the Browns to the playoffs? Like, I just think I take issue with some of the narratives that surround Baker.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it fits. He doesn't fit with the way this offense runs. It's just not he and Stefanski's offense don't mesh. So it might be best for both parties long term if they find other opportunities. I think he can play. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. I don't think he fits here as well as you'd want.
Yeah, I think you have a point there. I don't know what the perfect situation is for him, though, because he's not like a Kyler Murray that scrambles around and makes stuff up. Like, I think he needs some structure. He's better, obviously, rolling out, but defenses have decided to take that away. So you got to win in the pocket, which is tough to do when you don't have ideal height. I don't think his mechanics are always great. One of the callers talked about footwork. So I don't know. I think he's he's one of the top 32 guys in the league, but is he a top 18 guy that you go into the season saying, yeah, we trust this guy. We trust this guy to be the long-term answer. And obviously it feels like the Browns have decided that no, he's not one of those guys.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle-Telegram. You can also read him on brownzone.com on the internet. Scott, as always, man, thanks so much for making the time to join us. Appreciate the time and the insight.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, Scott Petrak again. Read him on the internet on brownzone.com. We're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Coming up, we will hear from J.B. Bickerstaff on a key win in overtime last night against the Clippers. Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter from Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is getting back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for spring classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. A nice win in overtime at home against the Clippers yesterday. Head coach J.B. Bickerstaff talked about that win and kind of understanding where his team sits, currently 6th in the Eastern Conference and out of that play-in tournament.
Well, there's no panic. I think that's the difference, right? Is we're not asking guys, to play helter-skelter or, to play with fear or worry. All we're asking guys to do is what they do a little bit harder and do it a little more. Understanding, how important each possession is and how we value those possessions on both sides of the ball. Like, that's where our mindset is. There is no added pressure. There is no panic from coaches or each other. It's how can we do what we do better? And how do we do that in more possessions than not?
J.B. Bickerstaff. Let's welcome in Chris Fedor, Cavs beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. And Chris, that bite kind of illustrates something you wrote about, just about J.B. Bickerstaff and how he has, he's the perfect guy for this young team.
He is, Dave, and he continues to push the right buttons. And a big part of being a head coach is, and a big part of being a leader is finding a way to communicate in a way that people are going to want to follow you. And J.B. Bickerstaff has found a way. And it's funny because before the game last night, I didn't want to call him old, but I wanted to make a point that he's got a lot of young guys on this team, and they don't speak the same language as he does at 43 years old. So I asked him, how is he able to bridge that gap? How is he able to get through to 20-year-old Evan Mobley the same way that he gets through to 33-year-old Kevin Love? And the thing is, JB is authentic, and he finds a way to get through to anybody, no matter the race, no matter the gender, right? No matter the age, no matter their background. And that's what it takes in the NBA. So much about this, Dave, is managing personalities and getting these guys to buy in. Yeah, it's substitutions, it's X's and O's, it's a scheme, it's all those things, but it's managing personalities, and he's done a great job so far this year.
So let's take a look at Darius Garland. Finished with 24 points, game-high 13 assists, and take a look at these numbers. He's 24 points, 10 of his last 11 games. Since January 30th, you see the points per game, 27.1, almost 9 assists, almost 4 rebounds. He's shooting 43% from three-point range, almost 50% from the field. Just a young guy who is really figuring it out, and he's going to continue to ascend because in addition to those numbers, every time you hear him talk, it's like, yep, that's not acceptable. We got to be better. He demands a lot of himself. That's the sign of a superstar.
Kevin Love said it best the other night when we talked to Kevin about just the increased attention on Darius Garland and the amount of teams that are just generating a defensive system to try and slow him down, whether it's Indiana picking him up as soon as he crosses half court, whether it's Miami not switching Duncan Robinson onto him at all in the second half, blitzing Darius, sending a second defender his way. Kevin Love said, welcome to stardom. That's what's going to happen. And it's good preparation for the playoffs, Dave. If the Cavs get to the playoffs, teams are going to focus on Darius. They're going to try and get the ball out of his hands. They're going to make Isaac Okoro, Lauri Markkanen, and some of these other guys have to beat them. We saw it for the Cavs when they went through their run with LeBron. One of the biggest game plans that they had going into a game against DeMar DeRozan or whoever it was, maybe Jason Tatum even, it was make the other guys beat them and see if they can handle the pressure, see if they can handle the moment. And Darius is starting to figure that out here in the last couple of games, right? He hasn't been as efficient offensively. He's been turning the ball over at a higher rate because the attention that he is drawing is something that he isn't used to. He didn't get this kind of attention in November. He certainly didn't get it last year. He didn't get it as his rookie year was one of the worst that we have seen in a long time from a top 5 pick. But he has grown. He has become a name on the scouting report for the opposing team. And he's the guy that teams are focused on trying to slow down with this team. And
the flip side of it is it's this young team, it's all part of the growing process. We've talked about it a number of times, and they'll figure it out. You know, they've met every other challenge. It may take them a little bit longer than fans want. I have no confidence that with no doubt with JB Bickerstaff that these guys will figure out exactly what they need to do. Chris Fedor and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, tough stretch ahead for the Cavs. We'll look at that. We'll also take a look at Evan Mobley. Plus, we head down to Goodyear, Arizona, where the Guardians have taken the field getting ready for spring training games. We'll also hear from Chris Antonetti straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. All right, we continue talking Cavs with Chris Fedor. So 14 games left in the regular season, hanging on to that 6th spot in the East. 7 of their next 8 are at home, Chris. And when you look at it, they are ahead of the Raptors by a game. They also hold the tiebreaker because they've won 3 over the Raptors. So it's almost a 2-game lead in essence. But, man, 76ers a couple of times. You're looking at Chicago, Toronto. Denver. It's an important stretch as far as that playoff positioning goes for the Cavs.
It really is, and the big part of it is that they're at home, and they've been a really, really good team at home. They've got one of the best records of any team in the Eastern Conference when it comes to home games. And here's the thing, though, Dave. They have to take advantage of it. Sometimes you're going to get breaks in the schedule. Sometimes you're going to get opportunities in front of you. Can you take advantage of it? The Cavs have squandered some opportunities here in the second half of this season, right? They lost to the Houston Rockets. They lost to the Detroit Pistons twice. So when you get these quote-unquote breaks in the schedule, then you need to capitalize on them. And even though there are some tough teams here, being at home is a benefit to the Cavs. They've been much better at home than on the road. And if they can just go 3-2 on this current 5-game homestand, and they're off to a good start, they got the first one already against the Clippers. If they can go 3-2, that'll go a long way into them being able to hang on to that 6th spot going into that road game against the Toronto Raptors, which is mighty important.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is they could, if they get on a roll again, they could easily move up in the standing. It's still very packed in that 3 through 6 range. So, but yeah, the key thing, stay out of that playoff. Let's take a look at Evan Mobley. Now, Jared Allen has gone down and hasn't been able to play, and Evan Mobley, man, has he stepped up. 21.6 points. You see the rebounds, assists, steals, the blocks. When Allen went out, Mobley kind of said, okay, they need me to do this. And he has really kind of morphed his game into what J.B. Bickerstaff and the Cavs have needed from him.
I write and talk for a living. I don't even know what to say about this guy anymore at this point in time. It's hilarious because Isaac Okoro, after the game last night, was like, we're not surprised by anything that this guy does on a nightly basis. Are you guys surprised? And it's like, we should be more surprised because he's 20 years old and he's a rookie and he's supposed to have hit this rookie wall and he's not supposed to play with this level of consistency because he is a rookie. Like, we're supposed to be surprised by this. But in a way, we're not, because he's been doing it all season long from the very opening night. Nothing phases him. And no challenge is too much. And it's interesting, Dave, because the Cavs knew at some point Evan was going to transition from power forward to center. They didn't know that it was going to happen about 60 games into his rookie year. They didn't know it was going to happen because Jared Allen went out. They lost an all-star center. And they're a different team without Jared Allen. Everybody can see that. Everybody can admit that. But if you're going to have somebody fill in for your all-star center, what Evan Mobley has done filling in for Jared Allen is nothing short of remarkable. He's not supposed to be able to match up against Bam Adebayo and Nikola Vucevic and some of these guys. Not this early in his career. Not when he's giving up 30 to 40 pounds. Not when all these guys have an experience edge. And here he is against all-star caliber centers holding his own. This isn't even his position. He's a power forward at this stage of his career as a rookie in the NBA, and he's going toe-to-toe with these guys, and he's thriving. It's unbelievable.
I agree wholeheartedly, and you know what? There's plenty of good things going on with the Cavs. They're finding a way to stay in this with guys that are banged up. They're going to get these guys back, and let's see. It could be a lot of fun this spring. Chris, can't thank you enough. Appreciate it for the time and the insight. Thanks very much. Chris Fedor.
You got it, Dave. Anytime, man.
All right, Chris Fedor. Make sure you read him. Cavs beat reporter, pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to head down to Arizona. The Guardians getting ready for spring training. Some workouts going on. Bieber, Plesac, all the arms back and ready to go. The Indians getting ready to get full squad workouts underway. Jose Ramirez taking some infield over at third base. Everybody getting ready for spring training games. It will be pushed together, and they're getting ready for that opener April 7th. Chris Antonetti talked about the payroll, and the ability to add to the payroll is there this year.
Yes. I mean, I think, Paul, the greater challenge for us is that we feel, we have a really exciting group at the major league level, a really healthy farm system. So we think we're going to be capable of building really good teams moving forward. We want to make sure that any decisions we make now not only help us in the short term, but have a chance, but at a minimum, we don't want them to adversely affect us for the long term. So that's the balance that we have. I don't think how much we have to spend in $22 is going to be the limiting factor. Yeah, there were kind of three areas, Brandon. One was catching. We felt we wanted to just improve the depth that we had in catching. We feel like we have, we love what Austin brings to the table. Sandy Leon's really capable of leading a pitching staff. But beyond that, we had some younger prospects in Brian Lavastida and Bo Naylor. So we felt we wanted to add someone, and that's why we, signed Luke Maley the other day. Beyond that, we'll continue to look for opportunities if we can improve our pitching staff, especially in the bullpen, and then add offense. I think the thing, though, we have to be cognizant of any move we make, we have to be thoughtful about who is it taking opportunities away from and where will they either get playing time or innings. Because, again, as I said to Paul's question, we really do feel great about a lot of the young players we have that are emerging at the major league level. And we think they're not only going to help us this year, but years to come. So we just need to be mindful of, continuing to get those players opportunities.
Again, Chris Antonetti talking about the ability of the Guardians to add payroll this year. So one of the guys that has been linked to the Guardians is an outfielder, Jock Peterson. And Peterson was with the Braves last year, was with the Dodgers before that, a young outfielder. Let's take a look at another tweet. Free agent Jock Peterson going to be 30 in April. Left-handed hitting outfielder. Parts of 6 years experience, an all-star in 2015, lifetime .232 hitter, did hit 18 homers and drove in 61 last year with the Cubs and the Braves. And again, he is a guy who has been tied to the Guardians as a potential free agent. So we will definitely monitor the things going on down in Arizona. We'll hear from Shane Bieber tomorrow as well. Said he would like to try to get an extension worked out with the Guardians. So that's good news from down in Goodyear, Arizona. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest Garrett Bush from 9 to 2-3, The Fan, The Barbershop, and Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. It is the beginning of the new league year. Some of those signings will become official. We will have the latest as well on anything that transpires with Deshaun Watson as the Browns in Houston meeting with Deshaun Watson, trying to see if they can come up with a deal to acquire the quarterback. We will see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock here on Sports for CLE. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.